Hey everyone, today we are here with the TheHossUSMC. We're actually up in McMinnville, Oregon at TJ Gun Sales. We're in the back right now. And I had an idea to do this video recently because I was reading through his short stories for a second time. They've been on Amazon for like a year and a half, maybe 2 years already.
Yeah, probably.
And long story short, these short stories are basically following two gentlemen who are working their way from Las Vegas up to Oregon. And
During a end of the world scenario.
right, yeah, and we'll touch more on the book series at the end. But these guys are having to largely go by foot across this journey. And I was thinking to myself, if I was in a situation like that, what gun or guns would I want to have with me for that sort of end of the world situation? Specifically in this case, there's an EMP involved. So we're going to kind of come at it a little bit with that, give or take, and that's just kind of a catalyst to drive the discussion, not necessarily we're stuck by those bounds, but that was kind of the catalyst that drove this discussion. So essentially this is, what are your end of the world guns? What would you take with you if you had to hike hundreds of miles potentially on foot and live out the rest of your life? And so I'm going to let...
Through America specifically.
Through America specifically, yes. That is very, very important.
Yeah.
Obviously, if we were in a different country...
Choices would be different.
There's like one thing on this table that might be legal in Canada now. So, yes. So I'm going to go ahead and let the Hoss start.
So we're starting off with we actually have several here,
yes.
But we're starting off with our number one choice.
Right, yes. So we're going in order from our first choice, and then also some possible alternatives or some maybe interesting options to consider.
So I think the number one option in America is anywhere in America is always going to be an AR-15. And there's a bunch of reasons why. I'll cover the main ones. The main one is it's lightweight, easy to operate. You can potentially carry lots of ammunition for it. It has decent enough range and decent enough lethality at range to get you out of most situations, because in an end of the world type of scenario, your goal 99% of the time is always going to be to break contact, so to not get involved in a shooting. So it's always going to be to get away and try to stay away from bad people. So the other thing is that the AR-15 is the most common rifle, semi-automatic rifle, that's capable of fighting with in America. So I have to qualify that, because there might be a more prolific semi-automatic firearm in America, but this is the one that's capable of being a good fighting rifle. And because of that means a lot of ammunition is going to be available, not only from civilians, but also from military sources. It's a NATO round, and
Law enforcement
will have them. And there's going to be lots and lots and lots of replacement parts available for the rifles. So this is one I built actually myself, and it's an excellent choice. Anything that has about a 14.5-inch barrel to 18, 20-inch barrel is going to be, that's of a decent quality, is going to be something that you would want to take. The only things that I would exclude from that would be inexpensive rifles, like the Ruger AR-556 is probably the worst offender. It's got to be one of the worst rifles ever made. From my own experience working at a gun shop and selling them and seeing the problems that come back, breakages, literally things on them breaking, the receivers breaking. I don't know if we showed you those pictures yet, but it's got to be one of the worst. So in that same kind of realm, and I know I'm probably going to butthurt a few people, but you have like the Delton, the Palmetto State, the Smith & Wesson M&P.
Oh, really?
Well, it's a great rifle, but it's not a fantastic rifle.
Anderson, anything Anderson.
Yeah, Anderson.
Radical Firearms.
Don't even buy it. Radical Firearms is worse than Ruger. So.
I agree.
The owner of Radical Firearms is now going to come to my house now, just like he did to that other guy. Oh, you can't talk crap about my company. Okay.
That is the thing that happened.
Yeah, that is the thing that happened. So specifically, something slightly nicer. Now, it doesn't have to be a super expensive rifle. It could be, an old Colt 6920. It could be a Colt A2, and I don't want to say only Colt, but BCM, any company that's producing a Spike's tactical basic rifle, even their very basic rifles, Armalite very basic rifle, still fantastic rifles for end of the world type of scenario. Now, my caveat to this in an EMP situation, because this is something that came up during the conversation that actually kind of spawned these stories, which is a whole nother story, was an EMP. So an aim point would be a very bad choice for that, which is something that I've started to move away from is red dots specifically, and move to variable power optics like this primary arms here, because it specifically works with or without batteries. So this rifle does have backup iron sights. All rifles, all combat weapons should have backup sights, fixed, iron or plastic or whatever they are.
That extends to everything we have on the table right now.
Everything should have backup sights. So that would be my assertion. Is that easy enough?
I 100% agree on everything there.
Yeah.
So yeah, along the same lines, it'll come as no surprise, and we've already alluded to it. My BCM Recce 16 right here, you guys have seen it a lot on the channel. This is when we've gone on trips together to like Vegas for SHOT Show. This is my rifle that I bring with me. Now, I used to run it with a red dot. However, I have switched to the variable power optics. Now, I guess to briefly touch on why I've gone to these over red dots, it's not just that they're EMP proof. It's more target identification, getting positive ID, because I can make hits up to 300 yards with a red dot, no problem.
Or making a precision shot at 300 yards.
Yeah, you can do it with a red dot. However, it's harder to tell the difference between an umbrella and a rifle at 300 yards, unless you have some magnification. I'm not saying that's always going to be the situation you're in, but that's one of the things that led me to this. Now, this one is from Primary Arms. I know some people will probably say that that's cheap. You shouldn't do that. However, I have 8 Primary Arms optics right now, and I've had 0 issues with any of them. This one specifically has gone through thousands of rounds. My red dots have gone through thousands of rounds.
Yeah.
The scope you're about to see has been able to stand up to the recoil on this rifle. So, anyway, all that to say, the reticle is etched into the glass.
It should be a quality optic.
Right, a quality optic.
Yeah.
If you're paying less than $100 for your optic,
don't do that.
Probably not something you want to trust your life to.
Yeah.
But something like this, it has an illuminated reticle, which is going to die in an EMP, but the reticle is etched. I mostly use it without the illumination anyway. So I have a bullet drop compensated optic out to 600 plus yards, which again, with this optic, I do 300 yards constantly, no issue whatsoever. And still have flip up irons. These ones specifically are offset so that I can still use them with the optic attached, but this optic is on a QD LaRue mount, which I want to replace with the Midwest Industries just because these bolts have been loosening, which affects 0. Yeah, so I want to switch to Midwest Industries just to alleviate that issue entirely. Yeah, Geisley trigger, that's one of the other things.
Geisley trigger.
There's a lot of good triggers out there. There's a lot of fun triggers. There's a lot of fast triggers out there. But if I'm trusting my life to it, Geisley makes me feel a lot better than anyone else.
Yeah.
Even mil-spec trigger, feel really good with a mil-spec trigger. ALG Defense.
Yeah, they do a combat trigger.
Yeah, all those good triggers.
$75.
When you start getting into the 3-gun competition triggers, that's when you start losing me. But
this is a competition trigger, actually.
it's one of the Geisleys, though.
Yes.
Right, we're not talking like the tub style triggers that
No.
are only 3-gun.
To be honest, I got this in a trade, and the only reason I'm using it is because I needed a trigger, and I'm waiting for someone to come along with another Geisley so I can trade them for this.
There you go. But yeah, so for all the same reasons that he already said, parts availability, ammo availability, weight, I can carry a lot more 223 ammo than I can say 308 or even 7.62 by 39.
Teach a child to use it in 10 minutes.
Exactly. Recoil sensitive people are not going to have any problem with AR-15s.
Yeah.
Also, one of the things that, because I'm a big AK fan, don't get me wrong, but if my BCG goes out in this, I can grab literally any other mil-spec BCG and it'll run it. If your BCG breaks or anything on your bolt breaks on an AK, you can't just take another AK's BCG and put it in and expect it to fit.
Yeah, you could try. You definitely should try it.
Well, yeah.
Instead of just throwing it all in the trash. But it's the likelihood of it working is not anywhere near 100%.
Right. Or even working safely, because it might work, but the
Yeah.
headspace is way off, and now you're having out of battery discharges. So, and again, a quality manufacturer like BCM, I have
Yeah.
thousands and thousands of rounds to this rifle, and I have zero hesitation trusting my life to it. Hence why it goes with me on trips where, you know, I want to be ready for something to happen.
Right. So then we kind of came up with, you know, we shouldn't just talk about one. Obviously, the obvious choice is an AR-15. But what about alternates? Other things that might be good.
Mm-hmm.
So we chose different rifles,
Yep.
specifically, that we both know of and like. And so specifically, the characters in the book series, which is it's called Join or Die.
Yeah.
Each little chapter has a different name, but the series is called Join or Die. The rifles specifically that they are using in the book is this rifle. This is a AKM style rifle. I built this one personally from a Polish kit, and it is set up exactly how I would want it to be set up. The only exception, the downfall of this, like he was saying, is that you don't have a lot of parts availability, you don't have a lot of ammo availability. So if you're going to have something like this, moving across the country, you're definitely going to have to carry more ammo on you, and then you're going to have to conserve your ammo more. And on top of that, you're going to have to, what would you call it, scavenge along the way. If you're going to take possibly more risks to scavenge than you might be comfortable with when you have a less common rifle such as an AKM style rifle. The other main disadvantage is that you can put a scope on an AK, but
Less than ideal.
there's never really a good setup for that. I mean, people will argue, but
Sure.
I would argue that this is an effective weapon at 300 yards with iron sights.
Yep.
But 300 yards,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So when you're talking about the Nevada desert, that's not a good thing.
Right.
You would always want, always, anytime you have a bunch of dudes with AKs, you would want to have somebody with a bolt gun, so that you could at least engage people at a long distance to try to keep them away from you. But yeah, I mean, the reliability of the AK is unmatched. It's ease of use. It's also easy to use. It's also fairly lightweight. This one is actually 2 pounds, almost 2 pounds less than my last AK.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I shaved a lot of weight off.
Yeah.
You could shave more weight off of this if you were really worried about it, but it's pretty good as is. So,
Yeah.
very effective weapon. In the 30 caliber round, in this will chew up cover a lot faster than a 5.56 round
Absolutely.
will. So this would be my second choice, I think,
Yeah. Yeah. And
depending on where I was.
right.
Because this is another big scenario is like the plains of Kansas are a lot different than the forests of Western Oregon.
Right.
The mountains and
Right.
forests. So
Well, and that's one of the reasons that I've gone back and forth between AKs and ARs is specifically the environment that we're here in Western Oregon, where you got a lot of trees, a lot of like bushes, shrubberies, and
really thick undergrowth.
the 30 caliber, even like 125 grain bullets are going to cut through that and still get its way to the target way better than a 55 grain bullet.
Yeah.
Theoretically you can be more accurate across the board with an AR-15 than an AK, but if you have even a blade of grass between you and your intended target, that can throw off that lightweight round going so fast.
Yeah.
If you're in a densely wooded area, AKs are really great. But again, the reason I didn't go with that for my first choice is added weight of having to carry around more ammo. Unless you're in an area where AKs are super, super prevalent.
Like Tucson.
Yeah.
A lot more AKs down there.
American Southwest seems to be a lot more AK heavy, but even then there's
Which
going to
is
be
weird.
It
There's
is.
a lot more open space.
right. But in the sandy environments, you know, the reliability. But even then, there's going to be tons of AR stuff in
Yeah.
those areas too. So going on to my second choice, sticking with 30 caliber, this is stepping up to a 308. This is actually a Century C308, which I don't know if I would necessarily recommend this specific type of model. I happen to have gotten a super awesome gem here in regards to reliability and accuracy specifically. I recently did a review of this scope up here and I was getting easily sub-minute groups, and I was spaking around a 6-inch plate at 300 yards, no problem with this, and just regular 150 grain ammo. But the nice thing about something like this is, similar to an AK, this will turn cover into concealment a lot faster than either a 5.56 or even 7.62 by 39. I can engage targets at a much longer range confidently with something like this. And
It's a NATO round?
It's a NATO round, so ammo is going to be prevalent. You know, there's 30-06, you might say, is, you know, a really great round for everything that 308 does, but 308 is going to be a lot more easily found and more prevalent and than any hunting cartridge like 30-06, 243, anything like that. And this type of rifle specifically, because of the rugged reliability of the roller delay blowback in these HK91 style rifles, it has iron sights built into it. And the greatest thing about something like this is the magazines. This is an HK stamped magazine from Germany, even marked G3. You can get these for less than $5 from like Brownells. This is literally the cheapest reliable magazine that I have for any firearm that I own. Less than $5. You can stock up on these. And in this platform, I have something that weighs about the same as an AR-10, but seems to be a lot more reliable than an AR-10. Now, if parts break on this, it's going to be damn near impossible to find replacement parts versus an AR-15 or an AK
and only an AR-10. One way to mitigate that is to just find out which parts commonly break on that style of rifle that you have, and then buy extra ones.
Exactly. Yeah. Proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. Definitely comes into play. Where even with your AR-15, while you can find parts elsewhere, it's a good idea to have extra bolts, extra gas rings, extra everything handy, firing pins.
I keep an extra firing pin, extra bolt, and firing pin retaining pin, extra extractor, and batteries.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if I would want to do a 4-14. I probably want to swap this out for like a variable power 1-6, 1-8, just for lightness and just more realistic engagement distances.
All battle rifles or combat rifles, in my opinion, should have the capability of going down to at least a 3 magnification. Yeah, it needs to be able to go down as far as you can go, and preferably 1.
Right, exactly. So I kind of like this idea as far as having a battle rifle. Something else along the lines of this might be an FAL, or if you have a reliable one, an AR-10, but most people
Springfield M1A.
Maybe a Fulton Armory M1A.
Yeah, like I was saying, a reliable.
Right, exactly, a reliable one. And really quickly, before I forget, in regards to red dots, there are 1-power optics out there that have an etched reticle, so you don't have to worry about the batteries dying. One that comes to mind right away, obviously you can tell I like Primary Arms. They have a Cyclops now, which is a fixed 1-power that has the etched reticles with holdovers and everything, which I'll be testing one of those out soon. But there are options out there if you don't want magnification, but why not get magnification if you can?
I can't, the whole thing that actually brought it up was, I can't remember the video game now, but it might have been one of the Call of Duty story modes. Yeah. Where the guy had an EOTech and there was EMP and it went out, and he's like, oh, my optic's not working. And I was like, oh yeah, what would happen if my optics stopped working?
Right, exactly.
So that's why we're heavy on the etched reticles or
backup iron sights.
Yeah, backup iron sights, yeah.
Now, why don't you go ahead and talk about your 308 you have here, and then I'll talk about
So another option, whether you're in the plains of Kansas or the deserts of Nevada or something like that, another option would be a scoped bolt action rifle. And a lot of people are going to say, that's not an effective combat weapon, but I mean, there's been many wars fought with bolt action rifles, including the most recent wars. There's many examples of our own enemies using bolt action guns effectively by changing their tactics to use the gear effectively that they have. So, of course, this would be a drastic change to your tactics when using a bolt gun of any type. But there's a couple advantages to a rifle like this. Now, I don't have one. This is one I actually grabbed off the shelf here at TJ Gun Sales. It's on consignment here. This is a Mossberg. I believe it's an MVP, And one of the
Thunder Ranch Edition.
Yeah, one of the major benefits to this rifle is that it uses an AR-10 magazine. So I can get a 25 round mag and pop it in here, 20 round mag, whatever, and have the magazines be potentially usable in multiple guns, but also higher capacities and very inexpensive to get. Another benefit, another thing that you want to look for in a bolt gun / brush gun type of survival rifle is a shorter barrel. Yeah, you're losing some feet per second once you get down to like an 18, 16 inch barrel, but that's worth it as far as staying concealed and being concealed. One of the main cool things about these types of scout type rifles, and I use that term loosely, is that they usually have backup iron sights built into the rifle. Definitely a good idea. The muzzles are threaded so you can put a suppressor on it, silencer on it. It's scoped, and it's a common round, it's a NATO round, and it's an effective rifle to use at almost any distance. Mm-hmm. Now when you're at close ranges, you're going to be at a much larger disadvantage based on whatever the situation is. Like if there's 6 or 7 guys and they all have AKs and they're 50 yards away, this is a bad rifle to get in the fight with. Mm-hmm. Or if you had to enter a building or clear a building. Now, I should have prefaced this at the beginning, but I wouldn't choose I don't know if I would choose any of these rifles over a handgun. If I could only choose one gun. Yeah. Because a handgun will allow me to appropriate some other gun. Right. By subterfuge, sneaking up to somebody that is a bad person, killing them and taking their firearm.
Well, I probably should have defined my terms early on. I for sake of conversation here, I'm assuming a handgun is a guarantee.
So with this, you would be heavily reliant upon your handgun at closer ranges, and you would need to be proficient with it and have a good, capable handgun like a Glock 19 or Smith & Wesson or some FN, something like that.
And to bring up surreptitiousness, which I don't think is a word, one of the benefits of a bolt action like this with a threaded barrel is...
It's a word now.
It is a word now. It's now going to be in the Oxford Dictionary. Running suppressed, whether it be a 308, if you're in a blackout bolt gun or something like that, you can get subsonic 308 rounds. You can load your own subsonic 308 rounds and be a lot more surreptitious and maybe engage people before they know they're being engaged.
Yeah.
And keep your own location hidden so you don't have to worry about being able to lay down a bunch of firepower. And then I would say also too, if you are rolling with a group of people and you're not just lone wolfing it, which you shouldn't do ideally, at least having one person with one of these would be a really
have it
good
in your pack. If you got two guys, throw one of these in your pack. And or even if at that point, if say both like in the story line that spawned this, the Join or Die series, both characters have an AKM. They also have a
770,
a really crappy hunting rifle, and I specifically chose that crappy hunting rifle because I didn't want them to have the cool gun. And it's a hunting rifle. It's a Remington 770, and it's a 30-06. And I chose that because I actually owned one of those at the time, and I knew it was a crappy gun. But that's something that you could do as well. 243 even is not a horrible cartridge, although not the best. 270, 300 Win Mag, 7mm mag, any of those, medium weight to heavyweight bolt guns, even in a hunting setup, would be something that would be good to supplement it with.
Sure.
And getting to supplementary firearms.
Right. Getting to supplementary firearms. So one of the things that we mentioned with something like this 308 Mossberg MVP or even the C308 is, they're great for longer ranges, but it might be nice to have something a little closer up. So here we have a Zenith Z5P, basically an MP5K, runs on MP5 mags. You can get 30 round mags, no problem. And this is a really good option to have. Say my primary was this bolt gun, or my primary was the C308, having this slung on my back so that, especially with the bolt gun, someone pops up close, or someone comes up from behind while I'm in my prone position. having something like this to quickly react to stuff is a really cool choice. And you have one of these also.
I do.
Now, if I were to buy and this is just kind of a placeholder for 9mm carbine, or pistol. So there are some options that are better than others. I would maybe look at like a Scorpion Evo over some AR9s out there. But just a 9mm carbine is a really nice option, or especially for people who are maybe smaller statured, who may be in your group of people, spouses, kids, something like that. This might be a good option, even just as their own primary. Something lighter weight, easier to shoot, that will still get the job done.
There's almost no recoil on these things.
Yeah, and even with the iron sights on this, as you can see, I don't have an optic setup on this thing currently. I can engage 100-yard steel, no problem. I know you've done some longer stuff with your
about 180 yards.
Yeah, which is further than I've shot this, and this will get the job done up close.
Yeah, a 9mm out of this gun will be effective at 180 yards. Not as effective as other things, but it's definitely deadly. So
yeah, especially in sort of end of the world scenario, even if it's a non-fatal wound, the lack of immediate medical attention will make a lot of what would otherwise be non-lethal wounds lethal, just over time.
Yeah, over time.
Whereas the 308, 5.56, 7.62/39, those will be much more immediately lethal, probably more fight-stopping rounds.
So ultimately, you would never want to rely on one firearm.
Right.
Overall, there's a reason why different firearm styles exist still and are popular, even amongst civilians. But what I'm saying specifically is in the military, there's a reason why we have guys that have bolt guns. There's a reason why we have guys that have different firearms. So any of these would be a good choice.
Yep.
Some of them would be made much better by a combination of these.
And again, your own local environment will play a big deal, because if I'm in the plains of Nebraska or Oklahoma, I've driven through Oklahoma. You can see a really long way. Maybe 5.56 wouldn't be your best choice. Definitely 9mm would not be a good primary firearm. Whereas a 308 bolt gun or 308 battle rifle like this, or an FAL.
But if you lived in, say, downtown Houston, Texas, the Zenith might not be a bad choice as the primary to get out of town. Right. So it's just going to be situationally dependent upon what you're doing at the time, and so that's another reason, going back to the AR-15, why the AR-15 is pretty good overall at everything. Yeah. So that's why AR-15 is the first choice. That's why it's probably going to remain my first choice. I think the AK is a fantastic rifle, but like we were saying, if I had to get out of town, there'd be a 90% chance that I'm grabbing the AR is my gun, my go-to.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, lightweight, easy to find parts, easy to shoot long range.
I actually carry this AK with me every day in my vehicle, and the other day, there was a shooting that happened about 100 yards from here, and I just happened to have this on me, and I was outside when it happened, and I ran over there with my rifle. The people were freaking out. They're like, "Oh my gosh, he's got a gun! Why does everybody around here have guns?" And when the cops showed up, I told them the story, and they actually, the policeman literally said, and I quote, "Seems reasonable." So,
seems about right.
Yeah, which I thought was the greatest response ever. So it's an effective weapon, but just like we were saying, the AR-15 is still going to be a better choice for an end of the world EMP type scenario across America, where you're traveling a vast distance, which I always thought was, you read these books about people traveling across the world even, and during a crisis, and it just seems absolutely ridiculous, like that you would travel hundreds of miles, but it's not outside of the realm of possibilities. Yeah. So.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially in a situation like if we're at SHOT Show down in Las Vegas.
Yeah. I'm not staying there.
I'm not staying in Las Vegas. I'm not staying in any heavily densely populated area, especially one that has a high crime rate. I'm probably going to want to get back to Oregon if I can. Probably following a very similar route to Mars and Cole from the books. Yeah. Are there other firearm styles that you might consider if, that we don't necessarily have here in front of us? Like what about an FN SCAR 16?
Sure, there's alternate rifles that are more or less equivalent to these in certain ways. SCARs, the ACR, other rifles, that tend to be common. I forget the name of it, but there's a roller block from MKE that's in 5.56.
HK 93 style, right?
Yeah, and it's
53.
Those are all great choices, but again, as soon as you move away from the AR-15 specifically, you start to lose those commonality of parts and commonality of magazines and things like that. So there's tons of good choices out there. This is just kind of our top ones that we have and guns that we know well.
Right.
So
Now, just for sake of talking about it and mentioning it,
sure.
Is the Mini 14 a suitable replacement for an AR-15?
If that's what you had in an end of the world scenario, yes, it's an adequate firearm that's relatively reliable. It's an okay weapon to have, but I would never choose a Mini 14 over any of these guns on this table.
I agree.
They're just not reliable as much reliable,
Not as
especially with the magazines. If you're not using Ruger mags, don't even bother. Just throw it away. If you have a Pro Mag, throw it in the trash and buy some Ruger magazines.
That's a general statement too, not just Mini 14s.
Yeah,
If you have a Pro
yes.
Mag, throw it away.
I don't know a single Pro Mag that works well.
Again, this was all kind of something that I thought might make for an interesting video. I know you did videos in the past, like for Chinese invasion stuff, but it's been a few years, so I figured it'd be good to get your take on it now.
The Chinese invasion is my catch-all phrase for worst case scenario.
Right, exactly. It's like what some people use for zombie apocalypse. Same thing.
I got nothing against the Chinese.
Right, exactly.
People.
Yes.
The government, I do.
Right. I usually say North Korean invasion, even though I'm pretty sure if North Korean troops showed up on our shorelines and saw fully stocked supermarkets, they'd be like, wait, what? This is not what we
surrendered.
Yeah, exactly. This is way better.
Asylum.
Yeah, exactly. Now, again, this was also catalyst for me rereading his book series. So why don't you talk a little bit about that book series?
Sure. So I've been writing some books for a long time, and I had a lot of people tell me that they were great, and I thought they were bullshitting me, honestly, and even begging people to kind of critically, give me feedback on these stories, and people liked them, and I had a few people give me some good feedback. So I released some short stories that are of the same characters that chronologically take place after the first book that I'm still writing. But the stories are available on Amazon right now. They're under my name, IT Houston, as the author. The series is called Join or Die. I don't know if for some reason they never got listed in the order, but they all have a name. It's like The Shot, The Town, the whatever. The Stash, yeah. And they're 15, 20-minute reads each.
Yeah, they're really quick reads.
Yeah. Those short stories are almost done, and they'll be up, and then eventually the book will be released. It's all written in my head. Actually, all 3 books, I'm planning on writing 3, are pretty much written in my head. It's just putting pen to paper is the hardest part of writing. But it is good stuff, and I mean, people enjoy it, and I'm glad they do. And it's definitely not a how-to book. It's a fantasy book that really was born out of, my mother's a publisher, and it was really born out of my mother pushing me to write creatively, to practice. It was meant to be practice, and people just loved it. So
yeah, like I said, I'm reading them. I've read them each multiple times because again, they're really short. The short stories are like 99 cents.
Yeah.
I think so just pick them up, and even if you don't live in
it's
the
actually
West,
cost me more money to release them than it is. The money actually pays for the publishing fees. So,
right.
Yeah,
and you can get them in ebook form. So I read them on my Kindle. But
yes.
Even if you would never find yourself on the western part of the United States where you're going from Vegas to Oregon, to me, some of the biggest value from them is just, I'm going to use this word again, it's like my word of the day, the catalyst for thought of what would happen if I was in this situation?
Yeah.
What would I bring with me? Who would I want with me? Most importantly, probably. It's just a really good way to get those juices flowing.
Yeah. And the stories are not meant to be like a how-to. I think I said that already, but they're also not meant to be this is the best way to address this scenario. It's just it's actually at points is intentionally I make them do the wrong thing, so that they have to face a consequence, which obviously is good storytelling, but also one of the reasons why I like the 299 Days book series from Glenn Tate is his characters don't always do the right thing, which made me think, well, what would I do? Right, like you were saying.
Yeah, yeah, and it's really valuable to think through this stuff. It's like there's that deck of cards,
Yeah, it's like it gives you scenarios on the card.
It's basically a deck of cards that each one gives you a scenario, and they have multiple decks now, and it gives you a scenario. And I used to do it with a group of guys that I used to train with when they actually didn't want to just sit around and drink beer all the time. That's a story for another time. And just to see, like, I want to know what these guys would do in this situation, because I'd rather at least have
conflicted.
That's what it's called.
Conflicted.
I want to at least think through what I think I would do. I may do something totally different in the moment, but I want to know what I think I would do and what these guys think they would do to see if we're actually going to be
like. I think one of them was like, you're in a plane, you don't have enough gas to get where you're going. You can either throw someone out of the plane, you can throw all your gear out of the plane, or you can land or crash.
I don't think landing was even an option. I think it's just like you have to reduce. Basically, you have to kick someone out of the plane. Is essentially what they're trying to get you to say.
I'd take a chance. I'd crash land.
Yeah, I would
take a chance.
That's what I would do.
I'm not throwing one of my buddies out of the plane.
Yeah, if I'm at the point where I've got this group of people, then I'm probably not going to want to give that up.
Unless the guy's an asshole, then I'll throw him out.
Exactly. I might just say, oh, we're running low on gas. We got to get rid of this guy. Oh, my bad. We had reserve tanks. Anyway. So again, if you have other stuff you think might be good, throw those in the comment section below, obviously. But again, this was just kind of our ideas with maybe a day's advance notice to be able to throw stuff together. But the big things are at least have iron sights, if not an optic. If you have a light, even better. Slings for long guns.
Slings.
Have mags.
Every gun should have a sling.
Actually, the sling for my BCM was with my MP5.
Yeah.
But yeah, so again, go ahead and throw any recommendations or suggestions down below. Anything else you want to say?
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, so I'm going to be uploading this stuff to Full 30. Definitely check both myself and the Hoss out on Full 30 if you can. At least subscribe over there. YouTube has already deleted one of my videos, and I'm sure that's just the first of many. So if something does happen, you can at least follow what's going on over there. I am uploading all my stuff early to Patreon, as well as some exclusive content. So if you feel so inclined, check that out as well. I won't get on my soapbox too much about that one. But anyway, with all that said, as always, I hope you got something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching.